for somebody introduce me. She let you go tonight, I bet you go be. There's somebody in the building that give it to me. See you staring at me like you in the movies. Now you watching movies. Looking at my life like you watching movies.
So you say you're a motherfucking fan of slasher films, eh? Well, this episode might be for you then, depending on how you feel about reboots of horror classics. Because today, on this episode of I'm Watching Movies, I'm going to be talking about the 2022 release of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the reboot. I literally just got done watching this a few minutes ago on Netflix. I believe it's a Netflix exclusive. It's about 80 minutes long, quick watch. But yeah, so we're going to talk about this today. I'm looking up some information about the film right now as we speak. It's kind of so far been a big year for horror reboots. We had the Scream horror reboot earlier this year, which I personally enjoyed a lot. But that seems to be like maybe that's a trend that's coming back. The old horror reboot. I think I may have heard of some other ones. I'm not sure that are coming out soon or whatever. But getting into this new Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot. New reboot because this actually is the second time the series has been, a second or third time the series has been rebooted actually. But this movie came out just this year, February 18th on Netflix. So about 2 or 3 weeks prior to the recording of this. And I guess it's from what I've been seeing on the internet, a lot of people don't really like it. I can see why a lot of people, especially fans of this series and of this genre, wouldn't have liked it so much. It was kind of just a weird modernization of the classic movie from, I believe, 1974. So I know a lot of people are protective of the classics, which is understandable. But one of the cool things about this movie, actually, is that they had a character return from the original 1974 movie, Sally Hardesty. She was the lone survivor in the first movie. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the actress who originally played her because she passed away in 2014, Marilyn Burns. But they got a replacement who I thought did a pretty good job and looked as close as you can imagine an aged Sally Hardesty would have looked. Olwen Foray, I believe is the lady's name. Sorry if I butchered that. But yeah, so basically the premise of the movie, it kind of seems like they're taking the approach that the Halloween series did, where it's as if only the first movie happened and the other ones didn't, because it's set 50 years after the events of the original movie. And there's like a group of people moving into the town. There's these 4 younger millennials that move into this neighborhood, or they don't move in, but they take a trip out to Harlow, Texas. That's where the events of the first movie take place, and they're buying a lot of old dilapidated properties and things like that in this certain area of the town, and intending to turn it into like a kind of like a hipsterish modern part of the town. I believe 2 of the characters are chefs and are opening up a restaurant, and they're also inviting a bunch of other people looking to invest in a section of that new neighborhood project. So then they move there, and then as the movie unfolds, you get reintroduced to Leatherface, who since the events of the first movie had been in hiding with his mother. But personally, how I felt about the movie was that I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit. I mean, there was obviously a lot of problems. It was kind of the writing, some of the dialogue was kind of cheesy or whatever, and there was a lot of like a political overtone, which I don't care regardless either way on the political thing, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to have it in there. It was just how they went about it. It just seemed like it didn't seem genuine. It seemed like the political things that they were trying to talk about, maybe like that it wasn't a genuine intent, but maybe they were just attaching political overtones to it to attract an audience to come and see it and drive the views up. And I understand trying to make when you're doing these reboots and you're taking these beloved franchises, I understand that you kind of have to add some sort of appeal for a younger to entice younger audiences to check out your movie. But there's just better ways to do it to be more subtle. I feel like Scream did a little bit better of a job of that and didn't shove a lot of things in the face which I'm not even opposed to that. I'm not opposed to a movie taking a political stance and having a statement. It's just that it has to feel genuine, regardless of what political view it is. It has to feel like it's actually coming from the heart for it to not feel like you're just trying to capitalize on somebody's political beliefs or whatever. But yeah, outside of all that though, if you're just taking it as is, as a standalone slasher film, and you're not trying to compare it too much to the classics, and you're ignoring some of the bad writing, some of the dialogue, some of the cheesy acting in it, it's actually kind of a fun movie. If you're a fan of the genre, there's a lot of cool, innovative kills throughout it. I don't want to say too many of them, but there was one particular cool one it was actually, I think, like one of the first big kills of the film, where Leatherface like snaps this guy's arm straight in half and his bone's sticking out. So then he takes the part of the arm where the bone's sticking out and drives it straight through this other cop's, that same cop's, like throat. And it was particularly brutal. Definitely a lot gorier than I expected for it being like a Netflix exclusive. They didn't hold back on that, so I thought that was pretty fun. They did a good job with all that. The film looked good, actually. It didn't look cheap. It looked like they might have actually invested in making this film look good. There were actually some pretty cool shots. There were some throwback shots kind of to the original film, like way certain things were filmed. They kind of had throwbacks. The ending, especially, without spoiling anything, they kind of recreated the final shot of the first film, but in a new way. And that's one of the things I did like the last like 30 seconds of the film, where they did something that is normally really cheesy and kind of hacky in horror movies, I feel like, but they did it in a way where it came out of nowhere, and it just paid homage to the originals. A recreation. I think they're definitely aiming probably for a sequel, but I don't know if they'll get it because of how bad the critical reception was to this. But also, I think a lot of people did check this movie out, though, and sometimes that's all that matters, so maybe they will get a second shot at doing this some justice and trying to revive the series. The casting was okay. You could tell, I'm guessing maybe a lot of the people in these main roles are relatively newcomers, and they did about as much as you can expect when you cast someone who doesn't have as much acting experience. Then again, I could be wrong. All of these people involved could be seasoned vets, but they were all pretty young, and they all seemed pretty new to the acting thing. So, which is a common trope in horror films anyway. But the two main characters were Melody and Lila. They were sisters. And Melody is actually not Melody, Lila actually is the one that's a survivor of a school shooting. So that was kind of a big thing throughout the movie. And they did some things to reference that. And I feel like it was cool to see that. I like the perspective of you don't see that often, a perspective of a survivor of a traumatic like shooting event like that, or even just extreme violence in general, to see how it affects them. And that was pretty cool. There were moments where the violence in the movie would trigger things in that character, and that was cool to see or to see play out, especially in a horror movie, a high violence, ultra violent slasher, Saw or horror movie. So I thought that was a pretty cool touch. Yeah. Other than that, we'll see the director of the movie, David Blue Garcia. Don't know too much about him. I'm guessing this maybe was one of his first features. Not bad if that was the case. Not the worst thing to start your career with, if that's the case with him. Yeah. Just overall, not the worst horror reboot I've ever seen. Wouldn't say it's a bad film. Wouldn't say it's a great film either. It just is what it is. Maybe it's slightly below mediocre. I probably would have rated it like if we're going out of like 5 stars, I probably would have gave it honestly maybe a 2.5. It wasn't horrible. There were things about it that were good. It's something that definitely you could probably build and look at what they did right and what they did wrong for a future film or two, if they are allowed the opportunity to capitalize on that and make some sequels. They could do some cool things with that. Definitely. Yeah. And so yeah, it was a pretty short film, so there's not too much to digest, and it's not like this film was the writing of this film was like super deep or anything. It was pretty on the nose, sometimes a little too much, sometimes maybe a little too ham-fisted. But for all that against it, not the worst film in the world, which surprisingly, in my book, isn't a bad compliment. I'd rather be not so bad than the worst. So I feel like it's in a pretty good position. And I guess as I'm looking it up right now, I guess the director did express interest in a sequel. I guess this was a Legendary picture done by Legendary Pictures, so I guess it's more so up to them if they would decide to move forward with doing a sequel. I don't know. I guess it would just depend on its possibility to make them money, if enough people would be interested enough into watching it. It's a weird thing nowadays with the streaming services and things not going to theaters, how all that works and how they decide what movies get sequels. It used to just be, I'm assuming, when movies made a lot of money in the box office that they would just get sequels, but now with streaming, it's kind of different, the way to get eyes on product and everything like that. So it's just interesting. I guess we'll see. We'll give it some time. I would probably lean more likely towards it not happening, just because I know it was pretty bad. I think it has film currently has like a 2.2 on Letterboxd. Let me look up and see what it got on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm sure it's megalo. Let's see results from RottenTomatoes.com. I'm doing this all one-handed as I'm holding a mic, sitting on my bed. Some DIY podcasting for you, ladies and gentlemen, as I type away on my laptop, looking up silly little insignificant rankings on silly little movie websites. It currently has a 32% on Rotten Tomatoes and an audience score of 30, so that's pretty low. But I've seen some pretty significant piece of turds get sequels too, so that's never a big thing. Oh, one of the negative things against this movie too was that Leatherface could have looked a whole lot cooler. There's such one of the most iconic looking horror villains of all time, and usually pretty cool and scary looking. He just didn't look at all very scary. So that is one of the negative things I would have against it, is if they are allowed the sequel, I would maybe look into changing up his look a little bit and making it look a little cooler. I understand maybe they were going for a little bit more of a realistic, because he's an older Leatherface. But yeah, he could have looked super cooler. And he moved a little quick for being supposedly 60 or 70 year old, however old he was supposed to be in the movie, considering it took place like 50 years after the original. He moved like a little too quick, but and pulled off some pretty super impressive moves for a man that was supposed to be that age. But yeah, he could have looked a little cooler, a little scarier. Overall, another negative thing about this movie that I wasn't a big fan of was that it just wasn't very scary. There were cool kills, but I never felt like the tension or the anxiety or the fear that you would feel before leading up to a big kill when you're wondering if it's going to happen. So the payoff of the actual kills didn't feel very impactful at all, because it was just like the kills would happen out of nowhere. And while they were cool, there was just no build to it, no story. So the emotion was just happened quick. It was just that was cool, and then it was over. So if the movie could have been a little more atmospheric and maybe built tension a little better, because some of the characters, it was hard to really feel the tension when also too some of the characters make poor decisions that clearly no human being alive would make. But without getting too much in that, I don't want to get too negative, because I still think there were good things about the movie, and I don't like being a super negative Nancy about movies like a lot of people do. I like to just enjoy them for what they are and have fun. And that's kind of why I do this podcast, because I think it helps me enjoy movies more, but it also helps me be more honest about movies too, and realize that some things in movies do suck. So yeah, and that's why I like to talk about them, and hopefully you guys listen. Hopefully you guys like it. If not, then just, I guess, don't listen. But yeah, for such a short movie, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys listen. And whatever the next movie is, hopefully you guys check it out. If you guys have seen this movie and have also watched this episode, leave a comment. Let me know how you felt about the movie. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. I plan on doing a ton more. Basically, almost anytime I watch a new movie, I'm able to get to a mic within a short, reasonable amount of time. That's kind of the concept, is that I'm doing these within an hour or two after watching the movie to get my immediate thoughts and reactions. So anytime I watch a new movie and I'm able to get to a mic in my computer and record something within an hour or two of watching it, that is my plan for this. And I also will have guests, as you guys can see on the last episode. I had my good friend Maddie Isom with me, and we discussed the movie Jackass Forever. So you guys can go check that out. Leave a like, leave a comment if you liked that. Let us know what you thought about that movie. And also my first episode, I'm watching movies with where I watched Licorice Pizza by myself and gave my thoughts on that. So yeah, check those out. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.